history's most famous shipwrecks, and they became part of a disaster of their own. This is the story of the Titan submersible, and it's about how a whole cascade of ignored warnings led to a tragedy that the entire world watched unfold in the crushing depths of the North Atlantic. So to really understand why this happened, we've got to go back to the final moments of the 5 people who were on board. It's June 18th, 2023, and the mission? A descent of nearly 4,000 meters to the wreck of the Titanic. Okay, so at 8:30 in the morning, the forward dome is secured, sealing all 5 of them inside. A little after 9:14, the dive begins. And for the next hour and a half, everything seems totally routine. Communications with their support vessel, the Polar Prince, were just these short, abbreviated text messages, confirming the descent, checking systems. Everything looked perfectly normal. Then, at 10:47 a.m., almost 2 hours into the dive, the Titan sends 2 final messages. The first one says, "Dropped 2 weights." That's a standard procedure to slow its fall. 6 seconds later, an automated message comes through with its last known location. And then, just silence. 2 seconds after that, the crew on the Polar Prince heard a bang. You have to understand, this mission, it was this unique blend of adventure tourism and scientific exploration. It was run by OceanGate Expeditions, and the Titan offered this incredibly rare opportunity for wealthy tourists and experts to go visit the Titanic wreck site. They even marketed it as a chance to be a mission specialist on a scientific survey. I mean, the allure of that, it was undeniable. And on this final dive were 5 people. Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, he was the one piloting. You had Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who was a legendary French diver and a total Titanic expert. And then there were 3 mission specialists, the British billionaire Hamish Harding and a Pakistani-British businessman, Shahzada Dawood, with his 19-year-old son, Suleiman. The man at the controls, Stockton Rush, he kind of operated on this philosophy of disruption. He genuinely believed that all the existing safety regulations were just stifling the kind of innovation he was trying to achieve. And as investigators would later find out, that mindset, it was at the absolute core of the tragedy that was about to unfold. Yeah, that whole mindset of breaking the rules, well, it would have devastating consequences. So back on the Polar Prince, after that final ping at 10:47 a.m., all communications were just gone. The support team sent more messages, but there was no reply. The minutes just stretched into hours, and panic really started to set in. This right here, this captures that exact moment of dread. You can see an employee pointing to the screen, realizing we have lost tracking. Messages sent from the ship's computer now just say, lost tracking. The submersible's icon, which had been this clear point of light on their map, had just vanished. What happened next was this massive, multinational search and rescue operation. We're talking 11 ships, 4 aircraft, all racing against this terrifying deadline, the Titan's estimated 96 hours of emergency oxygen. The whole world was completely captivated, just holding its breath, hoping for some kind of miracle against these impossible odds. But on June 22nd, 4 long days after the Titan went silent, a remotely operated vehicle finally found a debris field on the ocean floor. And the discovery of the Titan's tail cone, it confirmed everyone's worst fears, a catastrophic implosion. There were no survivors. So the frantic search had ended in absolute heartbreak. But for the U.S. Coast Guard, well, their work was just getting started. As they began their investigation to figure out how this could have possibly happened, they would end up finding a truth that was far more disturbing than a simple accident. By the way, if you find this kind of detailed explainer valuable, it would be a huge help if you'd support our work with a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. The official U.S. Coast Guard Marine Board of Investigation. What they revealed was that this wasn't some unpredictable accident. No, this was the predictable result of a cascade of failures, of ignored warnings, and a deeply, deeply flawed safety culture. Investigators pretty quickly identified a whole list of causal factors. The carbon fiber hull had an inadequate design and, get this, was never properly tested for these kinds of depths. Data from previous dives that showed potential damage was never really analyzed. The sub kept getting used even after really serious incidents. And on top of it all, there was this toxic workplace culture where anyone who raised a safety concern was punished or just ignored, which allowed all these problems to just fester. And this is crucial. The final dive wasn't the first time the Titan was in serious trouble. Not even close. During a dive back in 2022, a loud bang was heard. which investigators now believe was the carbon fiber hull literally beginning to come apart from the inside. But OceanGate's CEO just dismissed it and kept right on with operations. Experts who raised red flags, they were fired. Look at this text message. It was sent by a terrified co-pilot during a 2021 dive where the thrusters failed and the sub was temporarily lost. It really shows you the reality of the situation. This wasn't just some paper trail of ignored warnings. The people inside the vessel knew how dangerous it was. This co-pilot, he quit immediately after he got back to the surface. The physical evidence they recovered from the seafloor told the exact same story. Investigators believe the final catastrophic failure began at one of 2 points. Either the carbon fiber hull itself, which was weakened by all that previous damage, or the adhesive joints holding the end caps on. These sheared bolts, they just show the immense, violent force of the implosion.
So yeah, the engineering failures were catastrophic, but the investigation went even deeper, and it revealed that the flawed materials, they were only part of the story. The real pressure that led to this disaster wasn't just in the depths of the ocean. It was right there on the surface, driven by human decisions and financial factors.
At its very core, this was a failure of leadership. OceanGate actively misled its passengers about the sub's safety record. The CEO punished anyone who disagreed with him, building this culture where his vision was way more important than caution. And with mounting financial problems, the pressure to deliver for these high-paying clients was always prioritized over basic safety protocols. In the end, the implosion was instantaneous. I mean, it was caused by nearly 400 times the atmospheric pressure that we feel at sea level. It's almost impossible to comprehend. But the U.S. Coast Guard concluded that the physical pressure, it wasn't the ultimate cause. No. The real cause was the pressure of ambition, of money, and this idea of innovation at all costs that was just allowed to build up on the surface, totally unchecked and completely ignored, until it was far too late. Ultimately, all the evidence points to this deadly combination of all three. But I want to know what you think. What was the most critical failure that led to this preventable disaster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.